you started with a much smaller rocket, the Falcon 1. And was your goal at that point, when you started with Falcon 1, to get to the point where we had 9 engines for Falcon 9? Was that your goal at that time?
When I started SpaceX, I only thought there was maybe a 10% chance of getting Falcon 1 to orbit. I did not at all think that this would happen. So this is for sure a dream come true. But I literally at the time I didn't know anything about rockets, and I've been the chief engineer of SpaceX since day one, and I don't really know anything about rockets, which is why the first 3 rockets failed.
Right.
And then
so the first 3 Falcon 1s for SpaceX were failures.
Yes.
And then tell me about the 4th one.
The 4th one, so I'd actually only had enough money for 3 flights. So I had no more money left, but we managed the team sort of rallied, and we managed to put together enough spare parts to do a 4th launch, and that 4th launch was successful. And then
so what would have happened if it wasn't successful?
Oh, well, SpaceX would have died.
So we would not be here right now, at this moment, getting ready to launch Crew Dragon to the International System.
We've got a lot of work to do because we've got a lot of service centers and charge stations to construct. So mostly it's like we're trying to build our service and charge infrastructure as fast as possible. And I know this, like some of the customers who have ordered a car, they're not in the major cities, so they're a little unhappy with us because we are delaying delivery of their car. In fact, I'm going to apologize to some of them personally and explain the reason we are delaying delivery is because we really want them to have a good experience. But if they're too far from a service center and the charging is not sorted out, then they will not have a good experience. So we're going to delay the cars just for a few months to make sure that they have a good experience.
I think it's also important to reason from first principles rather than by analogy. So the normal way that we conduct our lives is we reason by analogy. We're doing this because it's like something else that was done, or it's like what other people are doing.
Me Too type ideas.
Yeah, slight iterations on a theme, and it's kind of mentally easier to reason by analogy rather than from first principles. But by first principles is kind of a physics way of looking at the world, and what that really means is you kind of boil things down to the most fundamental truths and say, okay, what are we sure is true, or as sure as possible is true, and then reason up from there. That takes a lot more mental energy.
Give me an example of that. Like, what's one thing that you've done that on that you feel has worked for you?
Sure. So somebody could say, in fact people do, that battery packs are really expensive and that's just the way they'll always be because that's the way they've been in the past. You're like, well, no, that's pretty dumb, because if you applied that reasoning to anything new, then you wouldn't be able to ever get to that new thing.
Right.